Good evening, children. So today I am here to teach you the poem Wind. The poem Wind has been written by Subramania Bharati but translated by A.K. Ramanujan. Before we start with the poem, discussion and the poets, let me first recite the poem for you. When I recite the poem, please listen attentively because when I recite, you will realize there is the variation of pitch, there is the variation of the tone, and that helps you to understand the poem very well. Is that all right? Okay, so here it is. Wind comes softly. Don't break the shutters of the windows. Don't scatter the papers. Don't throw down the books on the shelf. There, look what you did. You threw them all down. You tore the pages of the books. You brought rain again. You are very clever at poking fun at weaklings. Frail, crumbling houses, crumbling doors, crumbling rafters, crumbling wood, crumbling bodies, crumbling lives, crumbling hearts. The wind god winnows and crushes them all. He won't do what you tell him. So come, let's build strong homes. Let's joint the doors firmly. Pectiles to form the body. Make the heart steadfast. Do this, and the wind will be friends with us. The wind blows out weak fires. He makes strong fires roar and flourish. His friendship is good. We praise him every day. That's all with the recitation of the poem, right? But what I want you, when you listen to the poem, right? What did you feel at that time? What did you feel at that time? What do you think that the poem is about? Yes. What did you think the poem is about? Yes, Tejal, you are welcomed in the class.
Hello.
Yes. Now listen attentively. Don't you think that the poet is talking? Who the poet is talking to? The poet is talking to the wind in the beginning, right? But later on, when the poet says, so, come, the poet is addressing us. Us meaning the humans, we the humans, right? So here is a small presentation on the poem, children, which I brought for you. You will see, and then we'll discuss a number of the things. Wherever you have the problem during the discussion, you can interrupt me anytime, stop me, and please feel free to ask me because I don't want you to go back with the doubts. All right. So here is Wind by Subramania Bharati. Who is Subramania Bharati? Subramania Bharati, known as Bharatiyar. He was a Tamil writer, a poet, a journalist, and a freedom fighter. When the freedom struggle was going on, he played an active part by writing his poetry and then inspiring the people. And he was also a social reformer. He is very popular among the people as Mahakavi Bharati. He was a pioneer of modern Tamil poetry who had played an important role in bringing a modern element in the Tamil poetry. And he is considered one of the greatest Tamil literary figures of all time. He had been writing in Tamil this particular poem that you are going to read, this has been translated by A.K. Ramanujan. A.K. Ramanujan was also an Indian poet and a scholar of Indian literature. He had his expertise in 5 languages. He wrote both in English and Kannada. Kannada meaning the language that is spoken in Karnataka. He was a poet, a scholar, a professor, a philologist, a folklorist, translator, and a playwright. His academic research ranged across 5 languages, as I just mentioned. Which 5 languages did he know? English, Kannada, Tamil, Telugu, and Sanskrit. Right? Now here is an introduction of the poem. This poem, The Wind, is a free verse. Free verse. Verse meaning poetry. Free verse is that poetry which has a single line. Verse is actually a poetry. It can be single line where there are single independent lines are there, where there is a set of lines that is making 1 or 2 stanzas, right? And there is also a poetry which has a very good rhyming scheme, but there is a poetry which does not have a rhyming scheme. So any type of poetry that is called verse. But free verse is one in which poetry there is no rhyming scheme. Yes, children, those who attended my class when I took up The Road Not Taken Up, you remember The Road Not Taken Up has the rhyming scheme? As the last words of each line were rhyming with each other. But if you go through this poem, when we take up, we'll discuss, you will find that last words are not rhyming with each other. And every line has a full stop. So every individual line is there. The stanzas are missing in this poem. So that's how it is a free verse. So the poem Wind is a free verse which does not have rhyme scheme. It is a poem that continues in lines. Therefore, there are no stanzas here. The poem describes the power of the wind on nature and human life. The power of the wind on nature and human life, that is impact of the wind, how the wind touches nature, how the wind touches us. In simpler words, how the wind affects us. He focuses on its strength and motivates the humans to be as strong as wind. He focuses on its strength. He highlights the strength of the wind, how powerful the wind is. And using wind as a medium, the poet has tried to encourage and inspire the human beings to be as strong as wind. He suggests the man to be strong, both physically and mentally. He wants the humans to be strong, physically strong and mentally strong as well. How we can be physically and mentally strong, that you will read. The wind symbolizes the hardships. The wind stands for the hardships, the difficulties, the challenges that we face in our life. Right in the beginning of the poem, you will come across very destructive aspect of the wind. That destructive aspect of the wind does not mean that the wind is destructive, but it means the hardships, the difficulties that we face, which come in our life, like a stroke of wind. Like a stroke of wind. So many casualties recently had happened. Unexpected casualties had happened, children, around us. What were they? They were just like the stroke of wind that had hit them and then disappeared. Right? We can overcome the difficult times if we are strong. The difficult time does not stay for long. It does not stay permanently. But we cannot overcome that. We cannot get rid of that until or unless we be strong. We have to strive, we have to struggle, we have to fight the difficult times. And how we can do that? Only if we fight. In the presentation, you will find that for most of the slides, in the background, I have taken the pictures of the wind so that you may feel and you may understand the impact of the wind. I hope the introduction is clear. Shall I proceed to the next slide?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Yes. Now here you see I have not taken up stanza 1, stanza 2. I have taken up the lines which are connected with each other. Here it is line 1 to 6. The poet says, wind, come softly. Don't break the shutters of the windows. Don't scatter the papers. Don't throw down the books on the shelf. There, look what you did. You threw them all down. You tore the pages of the books. Who is the poet addressing, children? Who is the poet talking to?
Wind.
Wind. Yes, when he says wind, come softly. Who is he telling to come softly? Wind. When the poet tells the wind to come softly, softly meaning gently, that clearly indicates that wind is not gentle. Wind is violent, wind is strong, isn't it? Wind is gentle, wind is strong. When we talk about the wind, children, there are so many phrases that we have in our mind. Dusty wind, stormy wind, rainy wind, but pleasant wind also, isn't it? So that suggests that it's not always that the wind is destructive or wind is violent. But here, the poet talks about, when he talks about the violent aspect of the wind, he is actually trying to focus on the strength of the wind, how powerful the wind is. The wind says, here in the background, you see the picture, the window panes, the shutters of the windows being broken by the wind. Does it happen or not?
Yes, ma'am.
It does happen when the strong winds are blowing. A lot of damage takes place, right? So the poet says, wind comes softly. He wants the wind to blow gently. Don't break the shutters of the windows. Poets means to say that the wind, when blows so violently, it breaks the windows. It breaks the window panes. So when poet says don't break, the poet is pleading the wind. The poet appeals to the wind not to blow in such a way that you break the shutters of the windows. Meaning you should not turn violent. You should not cause destruction. Don't scatter the papers. Here on the next picture, you see it happens. You are going somewhere, you are standing somewhere, all of a sudden the wind starts blowing. If you have loose papers, they get strewn here and there, right? So maybe he was a poet. He might have sometimes written some papers which might have strewn due to the wind. So perhaps that's why he appeals to the wind not to scatter the papers, not to be so powerful, not to be so forceful that you would fly, you would force the papers to fly. You would fling the papers. Don't throw down the books on the shelf. There, look what you did. The poet gives an evidence. He gives an evidence of the books which were lying on his shelf and they fell down due to the impact of the wind. And then he tries to convince the readers and the wind as well that the wind had been so powerful, its stroke was so forceful, so violent, so destructive that even his books fell down from the shelf. And who is responsible for the books falling down? Of course, the wind, according to the poet. You tore the pages of the books. When the books fell down, he indicated that how the pages from the books they had been torn. He accuses the wind that wind has torn those very pages. So in these lines 1 to 6, children, he is completely addressing the wind. He is referring to the wind. He is accusing the wind. He is complaining to the wind how wind had been destructive, how wind had been harmful. Is that clear? Now here is the explanation that I have written. I will read it out, okay? And if you have any problem, you will ask me. In the beginning,
Excuse me, ma'am.
yes.
Ma'am, what is the meaning of tour?
What is the meaning of?
Tour.
Yes, tore is the past form of tear. Tear the pages, page ko faad dena, right? Cutting the pages into half. All right. So tore is the past form of tear. Tear, tore, torn. Right? Is that clear? Okay.
Yes,
In the beginning lines, the poet talks to the wind and appeals to the wind to be gentle. He highlights the destructive aspect of the wind as he tells the wind that it should blow softly. The wind should not cause destruction because when it blows violent, it breaks the window shutters. All the papers are strewn here and there. He's a poet and he might be referring to his paper that he writes. The books fall down from the bookshelf due to the stroke of the wind. Thus the poet blames the wind that it has torn the pages of his books. He wants to convey that the wind is uncontrollable. Wind cannot be checked. Similarly, we have many difficulties in our life. We have many difficulties in our life. They are unchecked, meaning they cannot be overcome. They cannot be checked. We cannot resolve those very issues. We have to strengthen ourselves to protect ourselves from the destructive forces and overcome them. What we have to do? We have to be strong. Then only we can overcome those difficulties, those challenges in our life. So it is our responsibility, it is our duty. We have to think how we prepare ourselves to protect ourselves from the destructive forces. Is that clear, children? Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Any doubt?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, shall I continue?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Now next is lines 7 and 8. In lines 7 and 8, the poet says, "You brought rain again. You are very clever at poking fun at weaklings. You brought rain again." What does it suggest? It is a clear expression that the poet is complaining, right? The poet is complaining. The poet is dismayed. The poet is annoyed with the rain, with the wind, right? He said, "You brought rain again. You have brought destruction and you are bringing rain again and again. Once a rain, we welcome children, right? When it rains again and again, in particular the windy rain, what happens? We get irritated, isn't it? Because it disturbs our life. It disturbs our life becomes slow, there are a lot many obstructions, so we get irritated, we get agitated. So this is how the poet again complains to the wind that the wind is not only disturbing his life, but is bringing rain again and again. You are very clever, you are very powerful, and so clever at poking fun at weaklings. The wind is so powerful that the wind overpowers the weaklings of the earth. Weaklings of the earth meaning what is weak on the earth. The wind overpowers the weak structures, the weak buildings, the weak people, the weak trees, anything that is weak on the earth, that would be affected, that would be impacted by the wind. So indirectly, when the poet says you are very clever at poking fun at weaklings, poking fun meaning making fun, laughing, right? Though poking fun is laughing, mocking, right? But here it is to overpower the weaklings. When the poet says the second line here, or the eighth line actually, right? What he is trying to convey to us again, that we have to be strong. Otherwise, we would be overpowered by the strong and powerful like wind. Is that clear? Doesn't it happen in the real life, children? Those people who are weak, weak in the sense they can be weak due to lack of money, they can be physically weak, they can be because they are not influential in the society. Such people, what happens? Such people are always humiliated or threatened or tormented by those who are rich, by those who are strong, who are powerful, who are influential, who are physically stronger. Right? So this is what the poet has tried to convey to the readers. I hope each and every word in these two lines is clear.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Now here is explanation. He complains that the wind is not only disturbing his life, but has brought rain again and again. He also expresses that the natural force of rain overpowers the weaklings of the earth. Rain is the natural force, right? So whatever is weak on the earth would be impacted by the rain, and it cannot be controlled. Don't you see what happens every year in Odisha, Assam, in Mumbai? Isn't it? A lot of distraction happens, right? So what the poet says, that the wind is so powerful that it would impact the weaklings of the earth. The wind, sorry, here it is written the rain, it should be actually the wind. The wind mocks at what is weak. It destroys everything that is not strong. Now you see that all those buildings which are weak, they collapse when a strong wind blows. The trees which become old, or the trees which are not strong, they just fall down. They get uprooted when the stormy winds blow. It crumbles. It crumbles. The wind crumbles. Wind affects what is crumbling, what is weak. The poet wants to convey to his readers that they have to be strong. Those powerful can always threaten the weak ones. I've already given an example. There are many other examples around you, children. So-called, I would say so-called, though we do not believe that there is any lower caste or upper caste. We do not believe Dalits or the other beings. But still in the remote parts of India, in the villages, still the discrimination goes on. And so-called the Dalits, they are discriminated. They are tortured by Brahmins or the other so-called upper caste communities, right? Because they think, those upper caste think that they are more powerful. So if the Dalits are strong, then they cannot be humiliated by the other castes or communities. This is just an example I'm giving you, right? We should not allow ourselves to be intimidated by others. We should not allow ourselves to be intimidated by others, meaning we should not be afraid. We should not be frightened of others. If we are strong, we have no fears. We can easily overcome all the challenges. We can easily overcome all the adversities of the life. I hope it is clear to you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now the next, that is line 9 to 11. Frail, crumbling houses, crumbling doors, crumbling rafters, crumbling wood, crumbling bodies, crumbling lives, crumbling hearts. Frail, crumbling. Crumbling means also frail, meaning weak. Weak houses, weak buildings, weak doors, weak scaffoldings, crumbling rafters, crumbling wood. The wood structure in the building, if that is weak, if the houses, the buildings are weak, if the scaffolding is weak, if the bodies are weak, if the humans are weak, if their hearts are weak, then what will happen? The powerful forces, powerful elements like wind, they would definitely threaten, they would definitely affect. So this is what the poet, by saying crumbling houses, crumbling doors, everything crumbling, he has tried to convey to the readers that we, the human beings, are weak. And whatever the things that we possess, our belongings, they are also weak. So if we build weak structures, then we can easily be overpowered by the strong ones. So that is how we have to be physically and mentally strong. When he says crumbling houses, crumbling doors, crumbling bodies, what does it mean? Indirectly, it means that if we are physically weak, and crumbling hearts, if mentally also we are mentally and like our inner soul is also weak, we do not have the inner strength also, then any other force outside would definitely overpower us, right? Now here the word crumbling is clear to you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
The poet describes how the human beings are weak and so are their possessions. Possessions meaning our belongings. What are our belongings? Our assets, our houses, our buildings, our properties. They have built weak structures of their houses. Humans have built weak structure of their houses. The doors, the rafters, the wood, they are so weak that they cannot bear the violent stroke of the wind. Those houses, those buildings, which are made up of quality concrete, strong material, they always stand. They always keep standing, whatever the storms, whatever the winds blow. They can bear every violent stroke, but the weak structure cannot. In this way, the poet expresses his disappointment at the weak nature of human beings. When the poet says frail, crumbling houses, crumbling doors, he is not complaining here to the wind, but he is expressing his disappointment at the human beings, that how weak the human beings are. Physically, they are weak, because of their lack of physical fitness. Mentally, they are weak because of the value system, the morals, the ethics which they lack. Their lives, their hearts are weak, which means that they are mentally weak. You will be mentally strong when you are broad-minded. You are mentally strong when you go out to help others. You are mentally strong when you are standing with the people. You are mentally strong when you are not thinking to harm others, when you are not being selfish, but you are selfless, right? The wind destroys all that is weak. That's how we are weak, and such people cannot stay for long. The forces, the powerful forces like wind would destroy them. Similarly, weak people are overpowered and humiliated by the strong ones. So the man needs to be strong. This is what the poet wants to say here. Any problem here in this poem, in this part of the poem?
No, ma'am.
Okay. All right.
Ma'am, I have a question.
Yes.
Ma'am, what is the meaning of rafters?
What is the meaning of?
Rafters. The rafters, the wood are.
Rafters are the parts of the structures, parts of the buildings. Right. Okay. So this is what we conclude here because just 1 minute left. The rest we will continue and conclude tomorrow at the same time. Till then, goodbye.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am, bye.